Tonight, President Trump's 2020 re-election campaign blowing past the all-time fundraising record for this point in the race anyway. Trump 2020 bringing in a head-turning combined haul of $105 million in the second quarter of 2019. Pretty good. President Trump also outpacing President Obama and Hillary Clinton's take-in at exactly the same moment in time in the most recent quarter by over 10%. Only two 2020 Dems have revealed their gains so far, Sanders and Buttigieg, and they pale in comparison to President Trump's. Joining me right now for a look at all this money and what it means, presidential historian Doug Wead and former Ohio State Senate Minority Leader, Democrat Capri Cafaro. Good to have you both here.
Absolutely. Good evening.
Doug, look, I know there's inflation, right? But not that much. So how do you explain this? Why is he so far ahead right now in terms of fundraising?
Well, he's the incumbent. He's got Air Force One. There's a lot of reasons why, but it's a little deceptive. I wouldn't be too cocky about it. You look at 2016, Jeb Bush had the money going in but didn't get the nomination. Mm-hmm. Hillary Clinton had the money going into the general and didn't win the general. And I've seen that all through history. 1980, John Connally, former governor of Texas, went into the cycle way ahead of everybody, and he got beat by Ambassador Bush and former Governor Ronald Reagan, who went on to win the nomination and presidency. So having the most money doesn't guarantee you'll necessarily win.
Yeah, money's not everything. I get it. And especially in places like where I'm from, in Little New Hampshire, live free or die. Capri, there's a brand of retail politics that sells quite well there, and that is expected, right? And the same kind of thing in Iowa. So money doesn't necessarily translate into success in places like that. Nonetheless, you combine the money with the personality, with the stadiums, with the airtime, that makes it increasingly hard, right? I mean, this was his recipe for success. He didn't need to buy commercial time because he was all over the airwaves.
Well, you bring up a very good point, Trish, and that the fact of the matter is that in 2016, Hillary Clinton did outspend Donald Trump pretty significantly for most of that election cycle. And he, Donald Trump basically outworked Hillary Clinton by showing up all over the place. So this isn't necessarily about money, but it is a very impressive number. One thing that I do want to mention, you mentioned, both Pete Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders and their numbers. They basically raised about $25 million apiece. That's $50 million combined. There are 24 Democrats running, right now in the primary, and only one president of the United States. So you could probably ascertain that, the Democratic donor base is getting sliced and diced all up and down. And when the nomination comes to bear, you can expect
money will go into one place.
One person is going to get that money.
When you look at the field right now, I mean, I've pointed out, and I said this before the debates, by the way, that Kamala Harris had a certain charisma that I thought translated from just being purely, this is the TV producer in me, right? That translates on camera and translates to the American people. But still, it's going to be tough to beat Donald Trump because he's got part of that charisma and also just, the resume of having created a successful economy. So, Doug, when you look at the landscape right now, can a Bernie Sanders win? Can a Kamala Harris win? Can, a Pete Buttigieg? Who do you think is actually the most in terms of personality that could give the president a run for his money?
I personally think Kamala Harris is going to win the nomination. But I have to tell you, I remember 2012 when we had a very crowded Republican field. There was a period when Herman Cain led in the polls. There was a period where Rick Perry got in the race and he led the polls. There was Michelle Bachmann who won the cavalcade. And then there was Rick Santorum who won the caucus. So there's a lot of mileage to go. There's a lot of mileage to go for the Democrats.
You know what? I think you're onto something with Harris. Anyway, Doug, Capri, good to see you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coming up, everyone, the U.S. putting out a